Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Heads. We are very glad to have you with us today in this new space where we are sharing conversations, insights, and perspectives from across the world of logistics and freight forwarding. This series is created for professionals across the industry and, of course, for our customers, freight forwarders, and everyone interested in staying close to the conversations shaping global logistics. And before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you can be the first to know whenever we publish new interviews, conversations, and industry content.
We're joined today by two industry experts who are well-versed in the LCL landscape, Felipe Grijalba from Shipco Transport and Gonzalo Jerez from TransGlory. Together, they'll be sharing 5 key insights and practical advice to help you with your LCL shipping journey. As Trade Lane Manager, Felipe plays a key role in shaping Shipco's Latin American strategy, which includes markets in Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. He works closely with forwarders to turn data-driven insights into tailored solutions. Gonzalo, as Sales Director, plays a key role in helping customers improve their market positioning. He works closely with forwarders to turn market insights into clear strategy and meaningful growth across Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and the Western Mediterranean. Felipe, Gonzalo, it's great to have you both with us today.
All good and excited to talk about the 5 key insights to successfully move your LCL freight, my friend.
That's right. It's great to be here, and hopefully we can bring some light to our viewers about our opinion when it comes to LCL. Felipe, what is LCL for you? Can you describe it for our audience?
Of course. I mean, let's start with what LCL stands, right? Less than container load, which basically means that we're going to load a container with multiple customers. That means that it's multiple freight that is different from each other, and that it will have different packaging, different shapes, different forms. So the idea for this conversation is kind of show a little bit of our expertise and giving 5 keys for our customers to look for.
And because it's so diverse when you face at an LCL box, there's different things that we think it's important to look at.
Yeah. We could start with the packaging, right? We know that any freight will have different type of packagings. It could be a drum, it could be a crate, it could be a pallet. So depending on those types of packagings, everything will be affected on the load. We will have customers that have multiple pails, multiple drums, and that at the end will affect how the LCL looks, right?
Correct. And even loose cargo. We see a lot of that when it comes from imports from Far East in general and Indian subcontinent, right?
Correct.
And
in Asia. Yeah, we saw it here too.
And that's the first thing that an importer should look at, or an exporter should look at when they are considering LCL, because the packaging is the first thing that will protect the cargo itself. So you need to control a lot the packaging when shipping by LCL, because that way you can avoid lots of damages.
Yeah, I mean, it's important for our customers to understand that when we're loading a container, the easiest way to do it is on a pallet when it's shrink wrap and it's banded. Why is that? Because we can put the forklift underneath and move the freight with ease. When we don't have that, it becomes a little bit of troublesome, right? And especially if we have multiple customers with different types of packaging, right? They will have to play a little bit of Tetris inside that container, and that's kind of the daily challenge.
Exactly, it is really like playing Tetris, and taking advantage of all the space possible within the container, and then also securing the cargo inside the container to avoid cargo movement that can harm the cargo, correctly?
Yeah. And in doing that, we need to take into account if a shipment is stackable or non-stackable. And that's key. And that's something that the customer need to ask the shipper. Can we put anything on top of this cargo or not? That's what stackable means, right? Can we put these under any other freight, or can we put it on top or on any other freight?
Correct.
And that's key for making an LCL move.
That's very accurate, my friend, because every cargo is different. So you have plain standard cargo that can be stacked among itself or among other cargos. You have cargo that can be only considered top load. That means It cannot be placed under another cargo, but it can be placed on top of another cargo. You have non-stackable cargo, plain and simple, that it's because of the size and the dimensions or the fragility of the cargo that you need to take it or handle it in a different way. And then on top of that, you also have over length cargo, over dimension cargo. You have dense cargo that you have to look at, and you have to prepare very carefully the loading of the containers.
Yeah, let's put us into a little bit of context. When we load in a box, we could have like an overland shipment of pipes, multiple pipes, but if they're fragile, like you said, we cannot put anything on top. That would means that the pipes, if they're long, there's nothing that we're gonna put in. So that will affect how our LCL move is gonna be done by the loader, right? And that means that we might have to consider a dead space. We have to consider how we're going to move that container, how we're going to deal with it. The same if it's dense, if it's too heavy, because every container has a top weight that we can only use either for the steamship line or the vessel, or for the road. When you're taking the road, taking that container to the port.
Sure.
So those kind of things you have to keep in mind, and it is always really important for the customer to give us that information firsthand, so we understand what we're dealing with. And the loader per se, when he's doing the loading, he will take that into account and make sure that the cargo is safe and secure.
There's a lot of work in planning the loading of the container and in preparing everything. And also you need to consider the weight of each cargo to be equally displayed within the container, to preserve the safety of the container and to avoid cargo moving inside the container as well,
Or tipping, right? Or tipping, because it could be dangerous that it could tip.
Sure. And then there's also a whole new world that opens to us when we consider also the DG cargo, the dangerous cargo or IMO cargo, right? That's a whole other different game.
When it comes to correct, and there's two things there, right? First of all, for DG cargo, there's no concessions on packaging. It must be properly packed every time.
Labeling.
And the labeling, correct. And the labeling, because we need to know what we're dealing with. And this, of course, it comes along with documents that we might talk later during our conversation. But this is key, because we as consolidators, we have to become masters of dangerous goods. Because I'm going to say probably 80% of our freight, even more, every single container will have a dangerous cargo.
Sure, depending on the trade lane, for sure. And we need to remind that the liability of this it relies on the shipper. I mean, the shipper is responsible of choosing the correct and proper packaging for DG cargo and the labeling. And that way you can avoid a lot of hassle along the way, even hefty fines at destination if things are done improperly.
And we've seen that a lot, right? Lately, the carriers have come really strict about hazardous cargo, right? Not allowing them to come in. Batteries, right? Batteries have multiple different ways to move it, multiple restrictions. Each carrier sometimes have their own type of fee when it comes to dangerous goods. So on our side, I think we're a little bit covered because we have a centralized team, right? To review that kind of documents, to give us the okay that we can move. And also we have to let our customers know we don't move all kind of hazardous. For us, it's impossible to do it. There are some distinct items that we don't move, like explosives, like military.
Radioactive.
Those are not for us.
Correct.
Radioactive, living cells or living species, right? Because they could be part of a move, but we cannot do it. But this kind of information is key for our load.
Sure. And then you also have to consider what kind of DG cargo is compatible with other types of DG cargo. And sometimes we need to separate the DG cargo in different containers because it's dangerous if you combine them together or if they are very close within the container.
And the same will go with the carrier, right? After we done that separation, after we do that compatibility, when it goes to the port, when it goes to the actual vessel, they will also see that. So it's all the way from A to Z that we have to see that compatibility. At least for our side, it's only at the container level, but on the service, it will affect every part of the service.
Sure. Spot on. And then also, I would add the loose cargo that we mentioned before. I think that it's very common to see loose cargo from imports from Far East in general, and depending on the trade, I think it's the easiest way to have the cargo damaged is to arrange it loose,
Correct.
unpalletized or improperly created, right? Keep in mind
Yeah.
that the cargo is manipulated several times along the chain and along the way, right? The container is loaded, unloaded, then loaded in a truck, unloaded from a truck, and all those things can affect the packaging, especially if the quality of the packaging, loose packaging, is not good enough.
100%. And I think now we're seeing more on a day-to-day basis. And why is that? Because we have such a big e-commerce service. So everybody's doing e-commerce. Someone can purchase something online. And when they do that, they will receive a small package. And they will say, well, let me send it to whatever. But for us, it's not the same. We're not dealing with these small packages. But when you put it in a container, if we don't put it safely and secure, it might move around. Not only damaging itself, but it might damage other freight that is inside the container. So that's why it's so important
Yep.
to have something holding it secure. A pallet, bandages, shrink wrap, everything together, right? That'll be the easiest and most secure way to move your packaging without getting a headache when it gets at destination.
Sure. So I would say that the first thing that you need to consider very carefully if you want to move a cargo by LCL is what kind of packaging suits you the best for your cargo, your type of cargo, and for the trade lane where you're going to send the cargo to the destination.
100%. And probably we didn't mention it, but there's some restrictions in different countries where we have where we need heat treated pallets. Not all countries accept regular pallets, and if we need a heat treated pallet, then it's a different ballgame. We'll have to take care of that before leaving the country.
So best thing is seek for advice from a proper supplier, right?
If it's properly packaged and secure, we will be good to go.
Spot on. So Felipe, what do you think
Sure.
is the second most important thing when facing an LCL shipment?
Well, I would say choosing the right routing.
Okay.
Picking, sometimes it's a straightforward question here to point A to point B. For us, we know that it comes more into that. Sometimes customers see a direct service different from the way we see it, right? What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I think it's important to address the terms correctly so that we are all in the same page. And the NVOCCs, we tend to have a different mentality from the freight forwarders who have a more carrier mentality when it comes to direct and indirect services, right? Services with transshipments.
100%.
So for us, an NVOCC, when we consider a direct service, that means that the same container that we load at origin is the same container that will reach destination, regardless of how it reached that point. So the safety of the cargo is preserved, and the cargo will not be manipulated and transloaded into another container, right? When the opposite to that is a transshipment service in the sense of
Correct.
we send one container from point A to point B, and in point B that is changed into another container that has cargo that came from different origins and will address the same destination, right? But then the forwarders and the carriers have a different mentality in that regards, right, Felipe? What do you think?
Yeah, it's always a different kind of the way they see it on the service. For us, let's say, I could say that a direct service, it transships via Panama, especially for Latin. When you say something is going direct to Chile and it makes multiple stops, but for a customer could say, oh, but wait, it's stopping in Panama, it's unloading in Panama, and then it's in another vessel. So that's not direct service. Well, for us, it's on the same container. So for us, it's just a direct service. Nobody's touching that box. Nobody's is pulling that seal off, right? Until it gets on the final destination. And that's kind of how we kind of want to explain and make it clear that sometimes we see that kind of movement.
So yeah, so as a summary, I would say that For an NVOCC, direct service means same container loaded at origin will reach destination, final destination. The opposite is direct service for a freight forwarder, normally for a freight forwarder, and especially for a carrier, means same vessel that leaves origin will reach destination. So it's important that we're talking about the same issues and we speak the same language when we are addressing the customers.
So I think that the next step for that is how we reach that final destination, because sometimes we could reach that final destination in a different way. Like I said, crossing the Panama Canal. There's two different ways to do it at this point. One is crossing the actual canal on the vessel, taking the whole canal, right? But we can actually unload the container, put it on a truck, go around the canal, and take it to another vessel. That will allow the freight to not have the appointment system to cross the canal, to not have like a congestion when it's happening at the Panama Canal. So that's depending on the carrier that you pick. So those kind of conversation is what you have want to have with the customer. What kind of service works for you, and what kind of service are you looking for?
Sure. And at the end, the world is a very big place, right? So there's many alternative routes to reach from point A to point B, right? I mean, you can use, in Asia, you can use Hong Kong as a transshipment, Singapore as a transshipment, Busan in Korea as a transshipment. There's plenty of options. Normally, as a simplification, the best route is the most direct route. But then the more options you have, the better to, let's say, avoid congestions in a particular part of the world, or to speed up or slow things down, because sometimes you need the cargo to leave your origin country, but you don't need the cargo to arrive before X particular date, So we can play with that along the necessities of the customer.
And I would say, I'm glad to say that as the WWA, we have many direct services, not relying on one single point. So we can reach a country from different hubs in the US. You don't have to rely on a single hub that is probably going to be congested, or that you need to cross the country in order to get to that hub. We have direct services all over the US that can help you out. And like you said, it depending on the customer, what they need. If they don't mind doing the inland transportation and they wanted to do it out of Miami, let's say, we can do it. But we can have those options, right? We can show you, hey, option number 1, option number 2.
Sure.
This has these benefits. This has these benefits. It's up to you.
It's all about communication and understanding the customer and what they're looking for in particular. Sometimes they're looking for price. Sometimes they're looking about speed. Sometimes they're looking about different things, Normally, the direct service tends to have less transit time, less complications, and especially less risk for the cargo, because the cargo is manipulated less times, right?
Correct. Less hands involved, less body involved, right? That's key too.
That's it. But then we also have a very unique possibilities when it comes to some transshipment ports to arrange all water service, let's say, meaning that the cargo is loaded in a container that it's transported by sea from point A to point B. But then also we can have some kind of hybrid solution by having part of the transportation done by road, and that's particularly important when it comes to ports that are very congested at destination, and we can go around that congestion by using ro-ro vessels and trucks that normally are not as congested as the sea freight terminals, right?
We can provide those kind of options, those kind of solutions. Sometimes are extreme, sometimes it's emergency, but other times we know how the system works, right? And we can provide those options and see, hey, you don't have any hurry to get to that point. Okay, we have this option for you, and probably give you a better pricing or whatever it is that we can work with the customers, knowing that is a best solution for them. So I think that's kind of the point too that we wanted to make. Choosing the correct routing, making sure that you understand what options do we have, and not only that, but what works for your customer. I think that's key for our customers to understand and to look for.
Spot on. I think it's very important once we have selected the right packaging and once we have selected the best route. I think it's very, very important to understand and know the regulations and the documents necessary for that particular destination, right? You need to be aware and you
100%.
need to be very well educated by your supplier on what do you need and what are you lacking in order to export to that country, right?
I think is key to avoid headaches and to avoid issues at the end of the road. As an example, right? I know Brazil requirements, heat treated pallets, NCM numbers, right? So depending on what country, they will require this kind of even documents or special packaging, and it needs to be done before sailing because it's better to be safe than sorry, especially with shorter transit times that sometimes it could be 2 3 days, and then if you haven't done that on time, you will have an issue. Let's say
Sure.
Panama, you need the CONAPRED. So all those kind of things are really key and important to make a successful move.
So prepare in advance the documentations and know in advance the requirements for that destination. That will help you avoid hefty fines, extra cost, and very big delays. There's a lot of things involved there. I mean, as you mentioned, Brazil is very strict in some things. There's other countries like Australia and New Zealand that during a certain period of time along the year, they have very strict regulations for fumigation or cargo treatment. So it's better to, if you have any questions, rely on the expertise of your supplier.
Cargo needs to be fumigated, and there's multiple ways to do it, right? It could be individually, it could be the whole container, and that kind of process takes time and understanding of what is needed in order to not have any issues when it goes to Australia. So yeah, we need to be just sure of what we're dealing with in each country.
Then there's also a lot of documentation involved in the transportation of goods, especially between countries that have transmissions. That means authorization,
Correct.
preloading authorization to be able to export to those countries. And you're an expert on this because USA is one of the main ones, right?
AMS. We need to do it
And ISF.
beforehand, right? 48 hours before an ISF. And well, for Europe, we have the ICS2, right?
Right.
That is kind of
We
new,
copy
right?
you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's needed,
Yeah.
and it's better to have everything ready beforehand. Otherwise, you're gonna face what? An inspection, delays, demurrage, storage, and a headache. So just be sure that when you're moving some freight, you do the transmissions on time.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
No, I
Gonzalo.
was going to say that even worst case scenario is the possibility to not be able to import the cargo, to custom clear the cargo at destination if something has been done wrong along the way. So it is very important because then you probably
Yeah.
will involve in enroll in a lot of extra cost and even lose the cargo.
And then you would think, okay, we can just leave it behind. No, you have abandonment charges. You will have storage charges. You still have a bill to pay, even though you probably cannot recuperate the cargo, right?
Sure.
Just an example, right? If you go to Brazil with a non-heat treated pallet, they will request you to put that pallet back into that single container and bring it back to origin.
Wow.
That's going to be a lot of
Imagine
money.
the cost
That's going to be a
involved.
lot of time. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So you need to avoid those kind of issues.
So off the top of my head, I would say that countries that involve transmission protocols that you need to be aware of are, of course, USA, Europe as a whole, China, Japan, Egypt, but there's many more.
Egypt.
So it is always better, if you have any questions, to rely on your NVOCC for that purpose.
Yes. We usually, the WWA usually, when you make a booking for any destination, we will have clauses, and that clause will come into your booking, and it will show you, for this destination, you need these. This is restricted. This commodity is restricted. All of that is important for you to read your booking confirmation because you will see what is needed from you. And if you have any questions, you can just come back and to our customer service team and ask them, and we will help you to assist you, even though sometimes we will not be able to do the paperwork for you, but we can guide you through, right? And probably recommend someone to help you out.
And on top of that, you also have requirements such as export licenses or import licenses. You have different regulations for customs. FDA for
correct.
sure. I mean, and you have cargo that is subjected to customs inspections before the unloading of the container. Some of the cargo are subjected to those inspections when you are proceeding with the custom clearance after the unloading of the container. So it really it's very diverse, and you need to be aware of all those hassles along the way.
And like you said, it will be to avoid additional charges and hefty fines at the end of the day. So it's the better for you.
Correct. And then you have, I think we mentioned it before, but you have DG restrictions in particular countries. Some countries you're not able to accept some certain type of DG cargo as LCL, or you're not able to accept it at all. In some countries, for example, in China, it's very difficult or impossible to export from certain ports of China some type of DG cargo. I'm talking now about, for example, batteries out of the south of China, and then you need to be aware.
We know. Yeah, and like our whole discussion is building this kind of chain. We have the packaging, we have the route, and now we have restrictions and regulations that it could affect the previous ones. Why do I say this? Because let's say like in Singapore, you cannot move restricted cargo like DG cargo for certain types, like a 2.1 or a 2.2. What that means that when you're choosing your route, you have to take that into account. You cannot go through Singapore when it goes to with those kind of DG cargo. So everything comes together, right? And like I mentioned for Brazil, you cannot use a regular pallet to move to Brazil. So you need to pick the right packaging in order to get it to Brazil. So all is connected.
So yeah, it all comes down to information and sharing that information. Be transparent with your supplier, with your NVOCC, and choose an NVOCC that can have different options for you depending on the type of cargo and the route. So Felipe, I have the feeling that there's an elephant in the room that we're not talking about, and that is price. What about the price? What do you think?
The question is, what is our customers, or what is on their mind of our customers? What is the cost focus that they have versus the reliability or the reality of the price that we want to offer, right? So I guess that's how we started.
Yep.
Analyzing what is better for what we can offer and at what price. And I think that's the mix that we want to get to.
If you don't look carefully at your packaging, your best route, or your requirements, you're going to end up facing lots of extra costs, lots of fines. Price is very tight with quality. And I think that it is very complicated to have very good quality at a very low price. Normally there's a balance there, What do you think?
Yes. Well, I think we have to understand that the service has a value, and that value has a price along with it. Of course, you can pick something that has a different value, but at the end of the day, what you really want is to make the best service for your customer. If you give the best service to your customer, they will come back to you. And that's what we kind of try to always try to rely on. We depend on our service. Our service is 100% what define us and what we want to provide to our customers. Quality, the making sure that communication is there. As I mentioned it before, we mentioned the packaging, we mentioned everything that we mentioned before. We put it on our bookings to our customers to know firsthand. So the first contact that they have with us with a booking, they already have the information that is needed from them. If they have any questions, they can go back to us and we will be there for them to ask those questions, and then be there along the way, tracking the shipment, offering the best solution for their customers. So I think that's where we kind of set off the baseline of our service versus the price. You know what I mean?
Yes, I completely agree with you. And also, keep in mind that many times when I sit in front of a customer, of a freight forwarder, and we're talking about a certain operation, the LCL is sometimes just the tip of most of the volume that they have. So for them, it is very important, the FCL and the air freight, and sometimes they are jeopardizing all the business that that direct shipper or direct consignee is giving to them because of a wrong decision with an LCL shipment. And I think that you need to be careful with that, and you need to be careful with whom you assign your booking to, because at the end of the day, that's going to be an extension of your freight forwarding department, and you have to rely
100%.
on them for everything, for information, as you said, for traceability, but also for the security of the cargo and the safety of the well-being of the customer, you know?
Yeah. Like, I mean, we can see that on our organization at WWA, we offer cybersecurity, we offer security of the freight, we offer tracing and trackability. So all those things will allow our customers to be kind of on the back end, right? Like relax and know that their freight is safe with us.
Correct. So Felipe, I think we've covered several parts that are very important when you're approaching an LCL shipment for the first time or for on regular basis, right? And I think that now that you have also factored in the price, you need to select an NVOCC, and there is plenty of options in the market, right?
Yeah, it's full of options. One of the key aspects that I would say is look for an NVOCC that is neutral, because it's gonna
What does it
make
mean,
sure
neutrality, when it comes to NVOCC?
neutrality
Felipe?
means that an NVOCC that only works with freight forwarders.
Okay.
That's plain and simple, right? So the neutrality is something that is sometimes difficult to find in the market right now. So I think it must be key for you to make sure that the NVOCC that you pick is neutral. Your business, your customers are gonna be safe.
Always choose, my advice to the customers is always choose an NVOCC that is going to partner up with you and that is going to become your ally. We as NVOCCs have access to all the information, and we have a responsibility towards our customers. So it is important that regardless the size of the customer, as we service big multinational accounts, mid-size accounts, and very local small accounts, they can rest assured that we're always on their side and we're always protecting their interests, because neutrality is engraved in our DNA.
Yeah. And I think we always looking for any kind of customers, a win-win situation where that customers grow, either building their own box or starting with an LCL and then getting to a point that they can do their own box. We can help with that. Or either starting with an LCL and then when they need an air freight shipment, we can help with that. So it's different kind of ways that we see as a partnership. We see as taking care of them and making sure that when we provide a service, it's a win for them, their customers, and at the end, it will be a win for everyone.
Sure. So you mentioned different services aside from the LCL, and I think it's important to say that NVOCCs, we can be a one-stop shop. So we can be a solution for different products. We can be a solution especially for LCL, which is our bread and butter, but we can also be a solution for air freight shipments, for FCL, for CFS operations, for tracking, custom clearance, insurance, and along, etc., covering many aspects and making the life of the customer simple, with the assurance that we're always on their side and not competing for their customers.
So make sure that the NVOCC that you're looking for has those assets for you. It will be important.
Yeah. And Felipe, I also think that the size of the NVOCC also is important in terms of service quality and service portfolio. So the bigger the NVOCC that you partner up with is, the more options you have. We mentioned before the options for direct routes. It is very important to have a very well diverse and complete service portfolio for direct LCL services. But then the bigger the NVOCC is, the more options for FCL and for air freight that can present to you as well, right?
And that's an advantage that we can probably offer. It doesn't matter the size of the customer. We can have a small customer, a local customer that specialize in two trade lanes. For instance, in the Latin American market, Chile is really big, Brazil is really big, but that customer has somebody else asking them, "Hey, I have a small shipment going to Asia or a small shipment going to Europe. Can you help me with that?" Of course we can. Of course we can. You cannot just focus on that same business or say no to a new business because you don't know it. You can trust us, or you can trust on our structure to provide that service, right? And in the same way, when we have a bigger customer, when they have to ask for bigger connections and connections all over the world, we can work on an RFQ. We can work on all those connections that they need and make a whole project out of it. So it's a good portfolio, and like you said, it's key to understanding what is the NVOCC that you want to partner up with.
At the end of the day, I think that we adjust to the customer needs. So we tailor made our services and our solutions to what they really need in each case, right? And we can do that
100%.
because the size that we have allows us to do it. For example, we didn't mention about CFS. Owning a
Yep.
CFS at origin and destination allows you to control the operation completely, to control the cost, to improve the service quality that you offer along the chain to your customer. And that is also important, right? You save time in the unstuffing of the containers, etc.
Yeah, and you can make decisions on the go. Most of our offices have the warehouses attached to it, right? So when we have issues on a day-to-day basis, we just can communicate on a phone call. You don't have to wait for a third-party warehouse to ask you something to then ask to the customer, right? Those kind of structures help us to facilitate the service. Not only that, but to make sure that when there's an issue, we can solve it right away.
Spot on. And then also, I think IT solutions. You mentioned traceability, you mentioned connectivity, you mentioned, time saving in order to send us bookings via EDI or send us bookings via our webpage. Whatever the customer needs, we can adjust to it. And even for those very small players in the market, we can offer our IT solutions so they can extend that flexibility and that benefit to the final customer.
We have a robust online tool, right? For quoting, for tracing and tracking. So those kind of tools, anybody can access to it. If it's a small customer or it's the biggest customer, all of them can have the same access to the same tools. Of course, what they're looking for, it might be different depending on their size and what they want. But at the end of the day, that is there for them. So I think when picking up the best MBO for your service, you have to take into account all those kind of cards and just take care and pick one that it fits what you need.
Also keep in mind that differently from maybe the carriers, and when a customer, one of our customers, a freight forwarder, is choosing a carrier, that carrier sometimes is known to the final consignee or to the direct exporter, right?
Mm-hmm.
We normally tend to be in the shadow. So we are known by our customers, but we don't have any direct rapport or contact with the direct shipper or importer. So it all comes to accountability, because for the final customer, the company providing the LCL service is the freight forwarder, and whatever happens,
Mm-hmm.
they will blame or they will reward the freight forwarder. So the freight forwarder needs to take that into account and request also accountability from the NVOCC that they hire to arrange the LCL shipment.
24/7 we're moving freight, so at some point there's going to be an issue that we need to face on, and you want to pick a partner or an NVOCC that it's face to face with you, that can have a conversation about what's happening and a solution of what might have happened and to move forward. So you have to make sure to pick the right partner. Okay, so what do you think, Gonzalo? We had a full conversation, 5 key insights that we share with our customers. What do you feel?
I think it was very rewarding. I learned a lot from you, so thank you. And I also want to
We
thank
both.
our audience for the patience, for being there, for listening to us, and I hope it was worth it for
For the
them as well.
questions,
Yeah.
yeah, for being engaged and give us your time because it's a precious thing. And so we appreciate that, and I hope we can have a new conversation in the future.
So thank you very much. Thanks to you and thanks to the audience. See you soon.
Thank you, Gonzalo. See you soon.
Thank you so much for being with us on this episode of Talking Heads. If you enjoyed this episode, please like the video, subscribe to our channel. You can also leave us a comment below and tell us what you thought about this conversation, or also tell us what topics you would like us to explore in upcoming episodes.
Felipe, Gonzalo, thanks for your deep insights. Between the two of you, you have over 35 years of experience, and that practical advice will be very, very useful to our audience. Well, that wraps up our episode of Talking Heads. Miguel, it was a pleasure co-hosting with you.
Thanks to you, Valerie, and thanks to all of you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Talking Heads.